closed door is often misunderstood as a sign of failure, rejection, or loss. But in reality, it is one of the clearest ways God redirects your life towards something better. When a door closes, it means God has seen something you have not. He knows the potential dangers, hidden traps, emotional drains, and spiritual limitations that lie behind the door you wanted to enter. Because He sees the full picture while we only see a small portion, He lovingly intervenes and stops us from walking down a path that would hinder our growth. What feels like a setback is many times a divine setup. When God blocks a pathway, it is not to disappoint you, but to protect the destiny He placed within you. A closed door also forces a shift in our perspective. We naturally gravitate toward what is familiar and comfortable. But comfort can sometimes keep us stuck in places we have outgrown. God closes doors to push us out of stagnation. Without that interruption, many people would remain in the same job, the same mindset, the same environment, or the same unhealthy cycle for years. The closed door becomes a spark that awakens movement, vision, and new direction. It is God's way of whispering, this is not your final stop. There is more for you. More importantly, a closed door reshapes our dependence on God. When everything is open and easy, we may begin to rely on our own strength. But when a door shuts, we are drawn back to prayer, reflection, and deeper trust. In the silence of that disappointment, God teaches us to listen, to wait, and to believe that He is working behind the scenes. This builds spiritual maturity, because faith is not proven in answered prayers alone, but in how we respond when the answer is no. Most people discover later that the closed door was the best thing that could have happened. Something greater always appears on the other side. An opportunity they never expected. A relationship that aligns with their purpose, a job that matches their gifting, or a path that finally brings peace. The closed door was not rejection, but divine redirection. It was God turning your steps toward a future far better than the one you were reaching for. When God blocks a path we were eager to take, it is rarely because the path was bad. Often it was simply too small for the destiny He has designed for us. God's purpose operates on a higher dimension than our understanding. So when He closes a door, it is usually to protect us from settling for something far less than what He intends to give. We are quick to attach ourselves to opportunities, relationships, or goals that seem right in the moment. They may look promising, stable, or comfortable, but God sees what we cannot. He knows whether that door would limit our growth or cap our potential. He knows when a position is beneath our calling, when a relationship would drain our joy, or when a dream we hold is too small for the gifts He placed inside us. What appears to be a wonderful open door from our human perspective can actually be a detour away from the greatness God planned. When God blocks a lesser path, it can feel painful and confusing, but in truth, it is a divine act of care. A parent won't let a child choose something harmful, even if the child cries for it. Likewise, God will not allow us to pursue something that cannot carry the weight of our future. Sometimes the path we want is only meant to be temporary, but we try to make it permanent. God closes it because He never intended for us to build our life around it. His no is always rooted in His vision for our ultimate good. A closed door also reveals our value in God's eyes. He doesn't allow us to settle because He knows what He placed within us. He knows the influence we are meant to carry, the lives we are destined to impact, and the territories we are supposed to conquer. A smaller path cannot hold a bigger destiny. If He lets us move forward too soon or too easily, we may mistake convenience for calling. So He removes the lesser path so that we are forced to pursue the greater one. In time, every person who has experienced God's closed doors realizes this truth. What God prevents is just as important as what He provides. The closed door was not a loss, it was a safeguard. God wasn't blocking your life, He was protecting your destiny. Delay is one of the most misunderstood parts of God's process. When something takes longer than we expected, our first reaction is often frustration or doubt. We wonder if God has forgotten us, if we prayed incorrectly, or if we are somehow failing. But delay is not denial. Delay is preparation. When God slows us down, it is because He is building something inside of us that cannot be rushed. Destiny requires preparation, and preparation requires time. God uses seasons of waiting to strengthen our character, sharpen our vision, and develop the spiritual maturity needed to handle the blessings He intends to release. Every great calling demands a season of shaping. You cannot pour a large destiny into an unprepared vessel. God delays certain things because He wants to expand your capacity to handle more. More responsibility, more influence, more wisdom, and more blessing. If He gave you what you prayed for too early, it might overwhelm you or slip through your hands. The waiting season becomes a training ground where your faith grows deeper, your endurance becomes stronger, and your trust in God becomes unshakable. Many people want the promise without the preparation, but God loves you too much to give you something you're not ready to carry. In the delay, God is also arranging circumstances, aligning people, and shaping environments that will support your future. While you are waiting, heaven is working. God may be preparing opportunities behind the scenes that are far greater than what you imagined. He may be closing the wrong doors, removing the wrong voices, and positioning the right people to meet you at the right time. Delay does not mean inactivity. It means divine alignment. There is also a powerful purification that happens during delay. Dreams become clearer. Motives become cleaner. You learn to depend less on your plans and more on God's direction. Delay strips away impatience, pride, fear, and self-reliance. What remains is a stronger, wiser, more focused version of you. Someone capable of carrying the weight of destiny. In hindsight, many people realize the delay was a gift. They discover that if God had answered earlier, they would have settled for something smaller or stepped into a situation unprepared. The waiting season was not a punishment, but an investment. God was not withholding anything from you. He was preparing everything for you. Every closed door in your life carries a message far greater than disappointment or confusion. It speaks a divine truth. Greater is coming. When God stops something you wanted, hoped for, or prayed for, it is because He is making room for something that surpasses it. God never takes without intending to replace it with better. He never ends a chapter without preparing a stronger one. When a door closes, it is heaven's announcement that your story is not shrinking. Your story is expanding. Often, we interpret a closed door through human eyes. We see it as a loss, but God sees it as a launch. We see it as the end, but God sees it as the beginning of a greater assignment. What we experience as delay or disappointment is often the very moment God redirects us toward a future we would never have pursued on our own. God knows the path ahead, and He knows how to align you with the opportunities that match your purpose. A closed door isn't silence. It is God whispering, "This is too small for you. Prepare for more." There is always a divine shift happening behind the scenes. When one door closes, heaven starts moving pieces, arranging circumstances, and guiding your steps toward a place of greater influence, deeper growth, and bigger impact. Closed doors are not endings, they are transitions. They signal that the season you were in has completed its purpose, and now God is elevating you to a new level. What feels like a setback is often God lifting you higher. The message "greater is coming" also transforms the way you approach life. Instead of grieving over the door that's shut, you begin to expect God's goodness. Instead of doubting the future, you start anticipating it. Faith grows when you understand that God doesn't shut doors to harm you. He shuts them to position you. He closes what is familiar so He can introduce what is miraculous. Many people look back and realize that the closed door was the turning point that led them into their purpose. If the previous opportunity had worked out, they would have missed the greater one waiting ahead. Every closed door becomes a testimony that God's plan is always higher, wiser, and richer than anything we imagine. So when God closes a door, don't panic, pay attention. That door didn't close to stop you. It closed to declare that your next season will be stronger, deeper, and far greater than what you left behind. When God leads you away from a familiar path, it can feel uncomfortable, confusing, or even painful. But every time He guides you out of a place you once depended on, it is because that place can no longer sustain the future He is building inside you. God's leading is never accidental. Even when His direction feels inconvenient or stretches you beyond your comfort zone, it is always purposeful. He sees what you cannot see, the future challenges, the unseen dangers, and the hidden opportunities. Because of this greater vision, He leads you in a way that may feel unnecessary at first, but later becomes the very path that saved you, shaped you, and elevated you. We naturally prefer what is familiar. We cling to routines, relationships, jobs, or environments because they feel safe. But comfort can become a cage. It can prevent growth, limit spiritual maturity, and keep us trapped in small thinking. When God begins to shift your life, it is often uncomfortable precisely because He is pulling you out of what is too small for your destiny. God's leading will rarely align with your comfort, but it will always align with your calling. He guides you through transitions not to unsettle you, but to expand you. Sometimes His leading exposes areas of fear, doubt, or dependency that He wants to heal. If He allowed everything to remain easy, those weaknesses would stay hidden. But when He guides you through difficult, unfamiliar, or stretching seasons, He builds resilience. He strengthens your faith. He increases your capacity. What feels like discomfort is actually divine construction. God shaping you for greater responsibility and greater blessing. In many cases, God uses uncomfortable shifts to separate you from what cannot go with you into your next season. This may include relationships that no longer align with your purpose, environments that drain your spirit, or opportunities that would distract you from your calling. His leading may feel abrupt, but it is never unnecessary. Every move has meaning. Every shift has purpose. Later, when you look back, you will realize that the uncomfortable direction was the best thing that ever happened. You will see how God positioned you for growth, protected you from harm, and prepared you for doors you were not ready to walk through. What once felt painful will make perfect sense. God's leading may disrupt your comfort, but it will never disrupt your destiny. Trust is not built in seasons where everything makes sense. It grows strongest in the moments when nothing seems to be working the way you expected. When God closes a door or redirects your path, your faith is stretched, tested, and strengthened. It is easy to trust God when prayers are answered quickly, opportunities appear effortlessly, and life flows smoothly. But true trust is developed when God says, wait, not now or not this. These moments reveal whether your faith is rooted in circumstances or rooted in God Himself. When you face a closed door, your mind immediately tries to find reasons. You wonder if you made a mistake, if you misheard God, or if something is wrong with you. But in reality, God often uses these moments to deepen your dependence on Him. He teaches you to trust His wisdom above your own understanding. Trust becomes stronger because you learn that even when you don't see progress, God is working behind the scenes. Even when you don't feel His hand, His plan is still unfolding. Closed doors push you into a place where you pray more sincerely, listen more carefully, and seek God more intentionally. You begin to shift from relying on your own strength to relying on His strength. And the more you rely on Him, the more confident you become, not in yourself, but in His faithfulness. Trust grows like a muscle. It grows by resistance. And the resistance you face when doors close is what builds spiritual endurance. In these seasons, God also removes the illusion of control. Sometimes we believe we are directing our own path, managing every detail, and shaping our future through sheer effort. But one unexpected closed door reminds us that our lives are in God's hands. This humbling realization actually brings peace, because you no longer have to carry the pressure of forcing things to happen. You learn to rest in the truth that God is guiding you, protecting you, and steering you toward what is best. Over time, you begin to see that every closed door you faced helped you grow stronger in faith. You start trusting God not only for what you want, but for what He knows is right. You begin to trust His timing, His wisdom, and His ways, even when they differ from your own. This is how trust becomes unshakable, through the very moments that once made you question everything. A closed door does more than stop your steps. It expands your vision. When something ends or fails to open the way you hoped, your natural reaction is to focus on what you lost. But God uses these moments to lift your eyes from the limited to the limitless. He knows that as long as you are attached to a door that was never meant to stay open, you can't see the greater path He has prepared. Closed doors challenge your perspective. They force you to look beyond what is familiar and consider what is possible when a door closes. God is inviting you to elevate your thinking. He is urging you to move from small expectations to big faith. Many times we think too low, dream too small, or settle for what is convenient rather than what is truly aligned with our calling. A closed door interrupts that pattern. It stops you long enough to reassess, reimagine, and refocus. Suddenly, what you once thought was the best becomes simply one option among many. You begin to see that your life is not limited to one opportunity, one person, one job, or one plan. God uses the disappointment of a closed door to stretch your imagination towards something far greater. Closed doors also reveal how attached we become to comfort zones. Sometimes you can't see the bigger picture because you are standing too close to something that is no longer meant for you. God closes doors to break the grip of comfort and redirect your vision toward purpose. You may not have lifted your eyes if the door had stayed open. You might have remained in a place that was too small for the destiny God's calling you into, so He closes it, not to hurt you, but to open your sight to what you were born for. In those moments, your vision begins to mature. You start to understand that life is not about what you lost, but about where God is leading you. You shift from why is this happening to what is God preparing. This transformation in perspective is powerful. It moves you from fear to faith, from limitation to possibility, from disappointment to expectation. When your vision elevates, your future expands. You stop looking at the closed door as an ending and start seeing it as a divine invitation to lift your eyes higher than ever before. Disappointment often hides the seed of destiny, and nowhere is this more evident than when a breakthrough is waiting behind what first appears to be a setback. Many breakthroughs in life are disguised inside moments of frustration, closed doors, or unexpected changes. When you face disappointment, your heart naturally wants to interpret it as failure, rejection, or loss. But in God's economy, disappointment is rarely a dead end. It is usually a doorway into something deeper, higher, and far more meaningful than what you initially desired. Breakthroughs don't usually arrive dressed in celebration. They come wrapped in challenges that stretch you, obstacles that grow you, and delays that prepare you. What you call a disappointment is often the very experience God uses to redirect your steps toward the place where your breakthrough is waiting. If everything remained easy, you would never be pushed beyond your limits. If every opportunity opened effortlessly, you would never develop the spiritual strength required to carry a higher level of blessing. God uses the tension of disappointment to build the muscles needed for destiny. Behind many disappointments is a divine rearrangement. God shifting people closing pathways, or removing distractions so He can bring you into alignment with His purpose. At the moment, you may feel like something is being taken from you, but in reality, something better is being positioned for you. The disappointment becomes a bridge connecting you to a breakthrough you wouldn't have reached otherwise. It shifts your direction, refines your motives, and awakens a deeper hunger for God's plan. Sometimes you won't recognize the breakthrough until you look back. You'll realize the closed door saved you from something harmful. You'll see that the missed opportunity made room for one perfectly designed for your calling. You'll understand that the delay created the exact timing needed for everything to fall into place. The disappointment wasn't a setback. It was a divine setup. Every time you face disappointment, remember that God is not subtracting from your life. He is positioning you for something greater. The very place where you feel the most tension may be the place where God is about to release your breakthrough. What looks like a loss today may be the foundation of your victory tomorrow. God often removes what is good so that He can replace it with what is extraordinary. This principle can be difficult to accept in the moment because our hearts naturally cling to what feels secure, familiar, or promising. When something appears good, we assume it must be God's will. But God does not operate according to what looks good on the surface. He operates according to what is best for your destiny. What you see as good enough may actually be a limitation. What you call stable may be too small for the capacity God is developing in you. What you think is right may only be right for who you were, not for who you are becoming. So when God removes something good, it is rarely loss, it is divine preparation for something far greater. God knows the full measure of your potential. He knows the gifts He placed in you, the influence you are meant to carry, and the impact your life is designed to make. Because of that, He will never allow you to settle for a path, relationship, opportunity, or environment that cannot support the fullness of your destiny. The good must often be removed before the extraordinary can appear. Just like a builder clears the land before constructing a masterpiece, God clears away lesser things to prepare the ground for something greater. This process can feel painful because you may not yet see what God is bringing. The separation happens before the revelation. You experience the loss before you understand the purpose. It's in that gap that faith is tested. You may be tempted to question God's intentions, but remember this: God is too wise to make mistakes and too loving to withhold His best. When He removes something, it is because He sees what you cannot. He knows that if you held on to the good, you would miss the great. Over time, many people look back and realize that the things they wanted so desperately were far smaller than what God eventually gave them. The job they didn't get opened the way for, a career that changed their life, the relationship that ended made room for someone who truly aligned with their purpose. The opportunity that fell through became the catalyst for a breakthrough they never expected. Every removal was actually a rescue. Every loss was preparation. God wasn't taking something from them. He was making space for something extraordinary. So when God removes the good, don't panic. Praise Him, because it means the extraordinary is already on its way. When something in your life comes to an end, it can feel abrupt, painful, or confusing. But with God, endings are never random. What finishes in your life often triggers something new that was waiting for the right moment to begin. God uses endings as divine signals that a chapter has completed its purpose. And now He is preparing you for a new season filled with fresh direction, deeper purpose, and greater blessing. What you see as an ending is often God making room for a beginning, one that aligns more perfectly with His plans for your destiny. The end of a relationship, a job, a dream, or a familiar season may make you feel like you are losing stability, but God never removes something without intention. He closes doors because He knows the next stage of your life requires a different environment, different people, and different opportunities. If He didn't bring closure, you might stay attached to something that was never meant to carry you into your future. God's endings are purposeful. They create the space needed for new things to emerge. When something ends, it also awakens spiritual sensitivity. You begin to listen more closely, seek God more intentionally, and open your heart to new possibilities. Endings shift your focus. They stir you out of places of comfort or complacency and prepare you mentally and spiritually for the next assignment. Sometimes the new beginning is already prepared, but you cannot see it until the old season is completely closed. God knows that divided attention creates divided purpose. So He ends what must end so you can fully embrace what is coming. This pattern is seen throughout life. Many people discover later that the moment they feared losing everything became the moment God started rebuilding their life with something far better. The end of one friendship made way for meaningful connections. The end of one role opened the door to a calling. The end of one dream sparked a vision that changed everything. What seemed like loss was actually transition. God wasn't taking from them, He was preparing them. Every ending you face has a beginning attached to it. Heaven does not close one chapter without already authoring the next. God is never late, never unsure, and never careless. The moment something ends in your life, something new has already begun in His plan. Your role is simply to trust that God's timing is perfect and His intentions are always for your good. Closed doors do more than redirect your steps. They refine your character and sharpen your spiritual clarity. When God closes a door, it often exposes what needs to grow inside you before you can fully step into the destiny He has prepared. These moments are not punishments, they are invitations to maturity. God uses closed doors as tools of transformation, shaping your mindset, stabilizing your emotions, and deepening your understanding of His voice. It is in these seasons of uncertainty that your heart becomes more sensitive to God's leading and your inner life becomes stronger and more disciplined. Spiritual maturity doesn't develop when everything is easy. It grows through challenge, reflection, and surrender. When a door shuts, you start asking deeper questions. You begin to evaluate your motives, your desires, and your priorities. You learn to distinguish between what you want and what God knows is right. Closed doors help you step away from distractions and refocus your heart on what truly matters. They strip away the noise of unnecessary options so you can hear God's direction more clearly. This clarity becomes one of the greatest gifts of a closed door. Closed doors also teach you emotional resilience. They force you to confront disappointment without letting it define you. You learn to trust God even when your expectations are unmet. You develop patience, humility, and faith, qualities essential for the next level of your destiny. Every time you choose trust over frustration, peace over panic, and patience over pressure, your spirit grows stronger. You become more stable, less easily shaken, and more aligned with God's timing. In addition, closed doors create space for self-awareness. They reveal patterns or attachments you may not have noticed. Perhaps you were relying too much on people, approval, or comfort. Perhaps you were moving ahead without listening to God's voice. A closed door brings you back to alignment. It helps you see where you truly are and what still needs to develop within you before you can carry greater responsibility. With time, you begin to appreciate the purpose behind the closed door. You see how much stronger, wiser, and more focused you've become. You realize that without that interruption, you might have stepped into a season you were not ready for. The maturity you gain is not temporary. It becomes a lifelong strength. Closed doors are not just barriers, they are divine classrooms, shaping your character and preparing your spirit for everything God has planned. Pruning is a painful but necessary part of growth. And God often uses closed doors as His way of pruning your life. When something is cut away, it might feel like loss, but in truth, God is removing what cannot support your next level. Destiny requires strength, clarity, and focus, and not everything or everyone in your current season can go with you into the future God is preparing. Just as a gardener trims branches to make a plant grow fuller and stronger, God trims areas of your life to make room for greater growth. What He removes is never random. Every cut is intentional and purposeful. Pruning seasons reveal what is truly essential. Many times, we hold on to habits, relationships, opportunities, or mindsets that served us once, but no longer align with where God is taking us. We cling to them because they feel familiar, but God knows they will weigh us down later. So He closes doors, ends seasons, or shifts circumstances to free us from attachments that could limit our destiny. It may feel like God is taking something away, but in reality, He is protecting your future from being choked by things that no longer benefit your growth. Closed doors also shape the strength of your faith. When God prunes an area of your life, you learn to trust Him beyond your understanding. You realize that spiritual growth often comes through letting go, not holding on. Pruning teaches surrender, choosing to believe that God's removal is as purposeful as His provision. It builds a deeper reliance on His wisdom and timing. You begin to understand that God's cutting is not cruelty, it is craftsmanship. He is shaping you into someone capable of carrying greater responsibility, deeper purpose, and higher calling.